Hi, everybody. Welcome to Christian Homestead. My name is Jared. I've got some news for you today. You may have already seen this, but you may have seen this article, but you may have skipped over this one detail. There's this article from November 24th that talks about Elder Caussé dedicating the new Institute building at Utah State University in Logan, Utah. And, I was combing through this. I was doing the typical thing, doing Control F, looking to see if there's any mention of the second coming, searching terms like comes again or return, things like that, and nothing. I'm starting to wonder if that's going to start to taper off now that we're transitioning from President Nelson to President Oaks. Maybe there won't be as much second coming talk. I don't know. There has been a fair amount. I've added some new quotes to my spreadsheet called quote second coming. But is it going to start to slow down? I don't know. But there was something really interesting to point out in this article. So, okay, this is a church news article. Let's scroll down to the bottom, and then I have some things to share from the article. Really quick, here's the new building. It looks really nice. It kind of makes me want to go back to Institute. I remember that being one of my favorite things after high school and during my college years was going to Institute, whether it was at Salt Lake Community College or at the University of Utah. It's just a really special time. And this is a really nice looking building. I like these light fixtures inside. Although, just really quick, I'm wondering if this type of architecture, if 20, 30 years from now, if it's going to start looking really dated, the same way that a lot of 70s and 60s architecture looks today. You look at the Independence Visitor Center, and it is a good looking building, but it's definitely a product of its times. And I just wonder, if the same thing's going to happen with these types of buildings. But for right now, in 2025, I think it looks great. Okay, so at the very end of the article, you have this group photo where you have Elder Caussé, his wife, and others. And in the background, you have this gigantic picture of what I think is depicting Christ at his second coming. You could make the argument, well, maybe this is him ascending, after talking to the apostles in the New Testament. I doubt that. It kind of looks like he's coming down. You could say, well, maybe this is him coming to the Nephites. Although I feel like if that was the case, the artist would probably include something that looks like a Nephite temple or Nephites where it would be obvious. So I can't say for sure, but my best guess is that this is a second coming painting. And the reason why I want to bring this up is because it's huge. And recently, within the last 5 years or so, we've been seeing a lot of really big depictions of the second coming. So think about this. Think about just a couple months ago when the new first presidency was announced. They did it in the conference center, and they chose to do it in front of this other gigantic painting of the second coming. In case you're new to the channel or you didn't know, this is a second coming painting. You can see Christ, and then in the air you have a bunch of angels that are descending. And we've talked about it a number of times on the channel. Excuse me. I can't remember which conference it was that used this as the official artwork for that conference. I don't know if it was April. No, was it? You know what? We better check. Let's not guess. Let's just go ahead and check. Let's go to the church website. Let's go to libraries, general conference, October 2023. Okay, never mind. Anyway, so it's almost like they want to put this picture into your mind, right? You think about President Nelson. This was from, dang, I should have looked this up, but I think it was in 2023 in one of the general conferences. he showed this portion of 3rd Nephi chapter 11. That's part of the Book of Mormon video series. He showed it in General Conference. Well, and then also, yeah, let's go to the October 2024 General Conference. Let's go to his big Second Coming talk. And he showed Harry Anderson's Second Coming 2 times. Once at the beginning, like zoomed in, and then once at the end. So you look at this one. This is in the new Institute building at Utah State University. And it's another, larger than life depiction of the Second Coming. You wouldn't be able to take this painting and put it in this hallway here at the bottom left. It has to be in a space like this that connects 2 floors, like 2 or more floors. So, I don't know. All this, you take it all together, it just seems like it's an indication of what the church wants us to be thinking about. They literally want to put these images in our minds because I think they're trying to prepare us for the Second Coming. Well, I think it goes beyond just thinking. We can be certain, especially during President Nelson's presidency, that that's what the focus was preparation for the Second Coming. And so you do that in all sorts of ways, including artwork. And one thing I wish I knew is if there's like a theme across all church buildings, like your local ward, if you have like a prominent Second Coming picture. The ward that I was in back in Kansas, that was like the main entrance that I guess there were 2 ways that people came in, but the one that was like the more of like the main entrance, that's what you would see. There was like the big Harry Anderson painting of the Second Coming. And dang, you'd think I'd pay attention. I can't remember what the ward that I'm in right now. But I'd be interested to hear your observations. Have you seen this other places? Like really big depictions of the Second Coming? Oh, you know what? I just thought of another one. Washington, D.C. Temple rededication Second Coming painting. I remember talking about that. In some videos. This painting, this is by Dan Wilson. This painting is in a prominent place in the Washington, D.C. temple. And I remember talking about how that seemed like a really significant event, just what Washington, D.C. represents and the church's presence in Washington, D.C. And then all these politicians and dignitaries, ambassadors going through that open house. And this was one of the main things that they saw as they were touring the temple. So here's another one. Yeah, I mean, I feel like this alone indicates that the church is really thinking about the Second Coming. And it's exciting. So put it in the comments below. Are there any that I missed? Really big depictions of the Second Coming. It feels like we're seeing more of them. Okay, well, I would like to shift a little bit, and I think it's fun to talk about these things, but I also think that we should focus on spiritual things, things that really matter when it comes to our exaltation and being on the covenant path. And I want to share a few things that were said in this article. Okay, so actually, let me go to the top. I have a highlight up here. I'm not going to put it on the screen. I'll just go ahead and read it. Elder Caussé said, "The church's commitment to education is part of who we are. It is woven into our beliefs in our daily lives. That is why the church continues to invest significant resources to promote both the religious and secular education of its members." I want to point this out. I feel like sometimes I see people that just completely reject secular education or secular sources of information. Um, and they get extreme in their beliefs. I feel like that's part of the radicalization that we're seeing in society right now, part of the polarization where everything is just black and white. And we shouldn't be like that. Um, you should keep the commandments. Yes, there's no compromise when it comes to keeping the commandments, but there's other things where there's nuance. And part of that is with secular education. Sometimes you bump into things that don't jive with our doctrine. And so you just identify those things and you accept the rest. And then you also acknowledge that science is not complete. We don't know everything, except the fact that some things could be wrong, but you don't just reject everything altogether. The church puts a lot of emphasis on education. So he says to promote both the religious and secular education of its members. Church institutions of higher education, seminaries and institutes, and other educational programs all play vital roles in fulfilling this sacred mission. I have more to say on that in just a minute. Later on in the article, Elder Caussé shared, quote unquote, 4 friendly pieces of advice that he said he hoped would bless the young adults attending as their journey through, quote unquote, this important season of your life. Number 1, remember that spiritual knowledge comes through the Spirit to the heart as well as to the mind. Let me say something about that really quick. I think I've shared this on the channel before, but when I went on my mission to the Spain-Barcelona mission, after getting through the Provo in the Madrid MTC, we finally showed up in Barcelona, and I think it was before going to the mission home. We went to this place in Barcelona called Montjuic, and there's like a palace up there. It has an incredible view of the city, um, and it has like old things up there. Like there's an old well, and the mission president would take you to the well and talk about the fact that on your mission, uh, you're supposed to always be learning, studying the scriptures. And he had like a study program. They were called the nivels or niveles, like the levels, and there were 5 of them. And he wanted you to complete 4, and then if you completed the 5th one, he would actually buy you an actual sword to take home from your mission. He was a wealthy guy. And it was kind of a grueling process. It all involved memorization of scriptures, but he took you to this well and talked about the fact that as missionaries, you need to study, you need to acquire knowledge, you need to memorize scriptures, because yes, the Holy Ghost can work miracles. The Holy Ghost could put the entire Bible into your mind, but that's not the point of mortality. We're supposed to use our agency to acquire knowledge, and then the Holy Ghost will bring things to your remembrance. So just like this well, he was using the well as a metaphor. You need to, scoop up the water, and fill your mind, and then the Holy Ghost will have something to work with. Like you can't get by just being lazy and expect that everything is going to happen miraculously. And that's just a true principle in life with all of us. We all have the duty to study the scriptures. We all have the duty to study the words of modern day prophets. We have the duty to acquire secular knowledge as well. It doesn't matter what period of life you're in, whether you're a college student or whether you're already retired. Okay, continuing. Number 2, let your spiritual learning be driven by a sense of awe and wonder, not doubt. Number 3, do not overcomplicate the gospel. And number 4, be wise in choosing your sources of information. So what I would like to do, in no particular order, is talk a little bit more about these 4 bullet points. I have one that's really interesting. It has to do with Grok. I recorded another video before this, but it's going to come out after I publish this one, where I realized that with Grok, there's actually a lot of things that you can get into. It'll share private conversations that it has with other users while, safeguarding their identity and keeping them anonymous. And it won't give you word for word conversations, but it'll tell you, oh yeah, this type of people, this is what they talked to me about in regards to the second coming, the gospel, Jesus Christ. um I feel like there's a lot of material to cover, a lot of content to be made just based on those kind of inquiries. But as far as like over complicating the gospel, I have a real gem to share with you, but I'm going to save that toward the end. That's going to be the that's going to be the grand finale. Okay, so let's see. Let's talk about um, seeking education. In this case, secular education. We're going to, let me just show it on the screen. So this is a talk by, at the time, Elder Russell M. Nelson of the Quorum of the 12, October 1992 General Conference, Where is Wisdom? And he has a section of his talk called Seek Education. Because of our sacred regard for each human intellect, we consider the obtaining of an education to be a religious responsibility. I love that so much. A religious responsibility. In this phrase, I know that it's been cited a number of times during President Nelson's presidency, but it's so powerful. Education, a religious responsibility. Continuing. Yet, opportunities and abilities differ. I believe that in the pursuit of education, individual desire, I should have highlighted that, individual desire is more influential than institution. So it's like, it doesn't matter necessarily where you go, what college you go to, or yeah, like, oh, I went to this high school, I went to this college, I got this degree. It's more about individual desire for knowledge. Continuing, and personal faith more than forceful. Okay. And personal faith more forceful than faculty. Okay. So these are the drivers for pursuing knowledge. Our Creator expects his children everywhere to educate themselves. He issues a command, seek ye diligently and teach one another words of wisdom. Yea, seek ye out of the best books words of wisdom, seeking learning even by study and also by faith. And he assures us that knowledge acquired here will be ours forever. Measured by this celestial standard, it is apparent that those who impulsively drop out, quote unquote, and cut short their education not only disregard divine decree, but frustrate the realization of their own potential. Now, really quick, I don't think that he's necessarily talking about dropping out of college. I think the better course is to stick with it. Don't drop out of laziness or other things. But certainly there are times when you should shift course. And in my case, I did drop out of my accounting degree and I went to something else. I got a FAA license to be an aircraft dispatcher. But there's people that, I think the more serious issue, college or not, is that you just simply stop learning. You plateau. You become lazy. Instead of learning, you turn to entertainment, and you're not keeping your mind active. And one of the things that Sister Nelson said about President Nelson is that the entire time that they had been married, he was always very curious, always wanting to know more. They would have somebody come over to the house to, fix like a plumbing issue. And and President Nelson would kind of hover and want to know, the process, like what was going on and how something was being fixed. Not because he was trying to micromanage. He was thirsting for knowledge. Here's somebody in his 90s. Yeah, at that point, probably in his 90s, wanting to know more about plumbing. I think we should all be like that, constantly learning, and it takes effort and it takes work. It's against the natural man. The natural man is lazy. The natural man just wants to sit on the couch and just zone out and have some cheap laughs and thrills. I think we should really examine how we use our time. Okay, continuing. I remember my moment of resolution many years ago when, as an untrained teenager, I secured temporary employment at Christmas time. The work was monotonous each hour, and each day passed slowly. I resolved then and there that I must obtain an education that would qualify me better for life. I determined to stay in school and work for an education as though my very life depended upon it. Later, as stake president, I was questioned by many young people about their own educational pursuits. Some asked me how long it took me to become a doctor of medicine. The general pattern would be 4 years at a university, followed by 4 years in medical school, I replied. And if you choose to become a specialist, that would take another 5 years or more, depending on your desire. That occasionally evoked a reaction. That adds up to 13 years and maybe more. That's too long for me. It all depends, I would respond. Preparation for your career is not too long if you know what you want to do with your life. How old will you be 13 years from now if you don't pursue your education? Just as old, whether or not you become what you want to be. So my counsel then and now is to continue your education wherever you are, whatever your interest and opportunity, however you determine you can best serve your family and society. And that's the thing, you guys. I feel like this is one of the big keys, one of the things that really separates those who succeed and those who don't, is if you persevere and you see it from, you see the big picture. You're not just like living in the moment. You're willing to put in the work, because, every year of school, for example, every year that you accomplish, there's X number of people that drop out. And not just school, it could be anything else, any other worthwhile pursuit. Every push-up, every, whatever, the longer you go, if you don't stop, there's all these other people that are stopping, and there's a separation at that point. And I feel like I see that here on YouTube as I look at other people in the greater LDS niche. There's a lot of people that just give up and just quit. They don't persevere. And the ones that continue are the ones that continue to grow. It's just that simple. And it's the same thing with knowledge. We have to always be learning. And you're going to be that much more ahead of people that stop and take the lazy route. Okay. Let's see. So I've added this quote to my spreadsheet called Quotes A through Z, currently row 161 for education. I'm kind of surprised I didn't already have this one on here, but now I do. Let's see. Let's go back to this. Number 2, let your spiritual learning be driven by a sense of awe and wonder, not doubt. Makes me think of President Nelson's April 2021 General Conference talk, Christ is risen, faith in him will move mountains, where he said, and this is one that drives people that are against the church up the wall. He says, second, choose to believe in Jesus Christ. If you have doubts about God the Father and his beloved Son, or the validity of the restoration or the veracity of Joseph Smith's divine calling as a prophet, choose to believe and stay faithful. Take your questions to the Lord and to other faithful sources. Study with the desire to believe rather than with the hope that you can find a flaw in the fabric of a prophet's life or a discrepancy in the scriptures. Stop increasing your doubts by rehearsing them with other doubters. Allow the Lord to lead you on your journey of spiritual discovery. And so the thing here is he's not saying not to learn and not to search for truth. The real key is this part. Allow the Lord to lead you. So be sensitive to the Spirit. There's another part where he said this: take your questions to the Lord, because then you're getting it directly from the source, and the Spirit can testify the truth to you. But this kind of goes along with something else that I found when I was searching the phrase religious responsibility on the Scripture Citation Index. I came across this talk by Elder Sterling W. Sill, assistant to the Council of the 12 Apostles, in a talk called To Have Dominion, October 1963 General Conference. He says, I have great authority over my finger. If I tell it to bend, it bends. If I tell it to unbend, it unbends. If I give my feet an order, they obey immediately. And we will have succeeded in our religious responsibility when we get that same kind of control over our thoughts, our emotions, our tongues, our industry, our faith, and our desire to serve God. Some of us have mistrained our appetites to a point where we tend to, quote unquote, think with our stomachs. That is, our appetites frequently have more influence in directing our lives than our reason, or even the commandments of God. This same misuse of our powers frequently gives our fears, our doubts, our prejudices, our hates, and our sex impulses the control of our lives. Before we can be successful in our God-given dominion, our emotions must be brought under the direction of the Spirit. So it's interesting because what that's essentially saying is that things like fear and doubt are characteristics of the natural man. He's talking about all these different ways that you have to tame the natural man. And if you don't, then you become a slave to these different things: fear, doubt, prejudices, hate, and the list goes on. So it seems to me like it's mostly a natural man thing. If we go back to this, it says, let your spirit. So this is the first article that we started with. Number 2, let your spiritual learning be driven by a sense of awe and wonder, not doubt. So it's like, in other words, use agency. Have your spirit be in control, not the natural man. Don't become lazy, because when you become lazy and you stop learning, you stop praying, you stop seeking knowledge through faithful sources, starting with God himself, then the natural man tends to go this direction, and it's scared, and the commandments of God don't make sense to the natural man. The commandments of God say, be humble, but the natural man says, be prideful. The commandments say, be meek, and the natural man says, be strong and be defensive. The commandments say to forgive. The natural man says, take revenge and settle the score. So that's really what's going on here, is a difference between agency and being spiritual, and the commandments and the gospel, and the natural man. Okay. And then number 3 is do not overcomplicate the gospel, but like I said, we'll save that one for last. Number 4, be wise in choosing your sources of information. Oh my goodness. Yeah. That's kind of a problem in this second coming space. I've been talking about it ad nauseum since the very beginning. And I'm not saying that I'm perfect, but what I'm about to read to you, I feel like I stick to this, and I feel like there's plenty of other people that just go off into the weeds and do whatever sounds good, whatever makes them feel better, whatever makes them feel special. So I asked Grok. I wanted to see what it said. My question was, how should one be careful in choosing their sources of information? Number 1, ask who is behind this information. Who wrote or published it? Do they have a track record or credentials in the subject? That's a good thing to ask. That's why on my channel, I choose to stick with experts and just point to what they say. And when I say experts, I just mean people that are either experts or in authority. The vast majority of what we study here are the words of modern day prophets, Um, we also read the scriptures, but when it comes to these scriptures that can be hard to interpret and there's all sorts of opinions, I don't care about private opinions. I want to see what the church has actually said about those scriptures and people who are actually in authority, like prophets and apostles. So, do they have a track record or credentials in the subject? And I'm sorry to say, but I've seen too many people who just take people at face value. You have these people come along and say, you know, I have this special knowledge, or I'm the leader of this group, and you guys don't question. You're just like, oh yeah, this person. Hey Jared, have you heard about this person? He's the leader of this group, and he's going to be doing this, and blah 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 blah. And there's this big prophecy playing out that you've never heard about before, but he's telling you all about it. There's too many of you that are just given to being deceived by charlatans. There's no easy way to say that. It's really sad. Uh, Someone will say, "Oh yeah, no, I talked to my stake president about this. A lot of you are questioning me about this type of content that I produce or things that I'm saying, but my bishop says that it's okay." And then for some of you, say no more. Okay, as long as you checked, I trust you. There's too many people that are too gullible, and there may not be a way to verify what they're saying, but if it sounds off or it's not in harmony with the gospel or what church leaders have been saying, then you should probably not dabble in whatever that thing is. Next, it says this is still part of number. Sorry, this is still part of number 1. Ask who is behind this information. The other bullet point is who funds them. Follow the money, like think tanks, non-government organizations, media outlets, and even independent creators who often have donors or sponsors with agendas. That's great advice. Okay, number 2, check primary sources whenever possible. Prefer original documents, raw data, official statements, court filings, scientific papers, or direct video/audio over someone else's summary or hot take. This is something that I take very seriously. I am always going to the primary source if it's available, or the next best thing. I want to hear it from the horse's mouth. I want to verify it for myself, because as soon as you get somebody else delivering the message, they can insert themselves into that message and give their own hot take. Okay, and then if someone's claim studies show X, then go find the actual study and read the abstract and methodology yourself. It's a good idea. It's a good idea. And the thing is, this is where charlatans can insert themselves, because they know that you don't have time or that you're lazy. You don't want to do it yourself. So don't worry. No, I read it all. Here you go. This is basically what they're saying. And then you're just like, oh yeah, okay. There tends to be this like mentality where it's like, well, this person is a YouTuber or they have a blog. That's more official. That's more than what I do. No, they're just everyday people. And even people that are experts, you still have to scrutinize them. You can't just believe everything that they say. Number 3, look for bias, not neutrality, because pure neutrality rarely exists. Every source has a perspective. The goal isn't to find a perfectly unbiased source. They're mythical. It's to understand what the bias is so that you can adjust for it. Read sources that openly disagree with each other on the same topic. If every outlet you follow says the exact same thing, you're in an echo chamber. And I think that's a big part of this polarization that we're seeing in society, is you only stick to the news outlets or the commentators or YouTubers that you like, and they all repeat the same thing, and you just become more and more radicalized, and you don't consider other points of view. Yeah. Number 4, separate reporting from commentary. Straight reporting, who, what, where, when, is usually more reliable than opinion columns threads or video essays that tell you how to feel about it. Even reputable papers mix hard reporting and editorializing, learning to tell which paragraph is which, or learn to tell the difference. Number 5, be skeptical. Okay, I'm starting to fall apart here. Be skeptical of sensationalism and emotional manipulation. Headlines and thumbnails are engineered to trigger outrage, fear, or tribal loyalty. Read past them. If a claim makes you feel smug, vindicated, or furious within 10 seconds, pause. Those emotions are the fastest way to bypass critical thinking. And we were just talking about this, having control of emotions, because that's a natural man thing. You're letting your natural man become smug with pride because you have a lot of pride in a certain theory or a belief. And so the smugness is like, oh yeah, see, I'm totally right. Like, here's just yet another proof of whatever. So be skeptical of sensationalism and emotional manipulation. Number 6, verify timing and context. Old articles, decontextualized video clips, and screenshots get recycled constantly. Check dates and full context. Yep. This just happened claims on social media are wrong 70% of the time in the first. Wait. On social media are wrong about 70% of the time in the first hours. Research on breaking news accuracy bears this out. Yeah, you see that all the time on X. People that just, and sometimes it's innocent, I think. It's people that think that there's something going on, but they haven't verified it and they go with whatever the rumor is. Number 7, use multiple independent corroborations. Okay, let's move on. Number 8, learn the difference. There's certain phrases I wanted to be careful with. Learn the difference between Gadiat and robber theories. And let's see, most large mistakes are incompetence, not evil master plans. Oh, so some people will take something bad that happened to mean that there's a Gadiatan robber thing going on. And it's like, no, just something really bad happened and that's it. It's not because of an evil master plan. Prefer the simpler explanation unless extraordinary evidence shows otherwise. Number 9, develop a personal trust but verify list. Keep a short mental or actual list of outlets, researchers, or individuals who have been consistently accurate or honest about corrections in the past. Update the list ruthlessly when they screw up or pivot to activism over facts. And that's a good idea. I'm sure that all of us, well, no, I'm not sure of that. I'm sure there's a lot of people that already do this. They have like an unofficial list of people that they feel are reputable and trustworthy, but we need to make sure that they are consistently accurate over time. And that's another thing. Some people don't. They just believe people immediately. They don't. They don't test people. A lot of times people can win you over in the short term, but as you observe them over time, the mask slips. You start to see the red flags. You start to see the inconsistencies. Not that anybody's perfect, because everyone's going to make mistakes or, whatever. But if you observe somebody over time, that's going to be the best indicator if that's somebody that you can trust. And unfortunately, you have some new person that comes along making big claims, and there's so many people that are just so addicted to dopamine and excitement that it's like, oh, they just they're all in on whatever the new theory or claim is. Number 10, apply the outsider test. Ask, if someone who disagreed with me read this same source, would they think it's fair? If the answer is obviously no, you need more perspectives. In short, treat information like food. Know where it came from, how it was processed, and whether it's likely to nourish you or give you ideological food poisoning. Diversify your sources, touch the raw data when you can, and never outsource your thinking entirely to any one person, outlet, or tribe. Yeah, and that's kind of freaky. Outsourcing your thinking entirely to one person. I feel like that's happened a lot of times with certain, you know, um, talk show hosts and influencers and stuff like that, and it's all part of the echo chamber. Um, when it comes to the sensational, I feel like no matter what the topic is, whatever is being sensationalized, I feel like there is usually you have like this core crowd that goes after the sensational, and they have similar traits. And I thought it'd be a good idea to pull up one example. So I asked Grok, it seems like the crypto slash NFT crowd are the newer version of the older buy precious metals crowd, with a high suspicion of the Federal Reserve and central banks. I've had conversations with you before that many of these people are toxic, fragile ego, narcissists, psychopaths, etc. Can you remind me why these kinds of people are attracted to these topics? And if you're into precious metals, if you're into crypto and stuff like that, that's great. I'm not saying that you're bad, but there is definitely a portion of that group that's very loud, and you can tell that's something like there's some other thing going on. And this is what Grok says. Yes, the overlap between hard money slash gold bug crowd and the crypto NFT maximalist crowd is massive. And you're right that a disproportionate number of the loudest voices in both spaces display the same cluster of personality traits. Um, Extreme narcissism, fragile ego, black and white thinking, persecution complexes, and sometimes outright sociopathy. Here's why these topics act like magnets for that specific personality type. Now, the point here is not to focus in on crypto. This could apply to any. It could apply to certain second coming groups. It could apply to other financial schemes and charlatans and the sensational. We're talking about the sensational here. So number one, so why do they do it? Who are the people that are mostly attracted to these things? Number one, and why do they do it? Grandiosity and special knowledge. Both precious metal bugs and crypto bros get to feel like they've cracked a secret code that 99% of sheeple are too stupid to see. The Fed is a scam, fiat is going to zero, only I understand real money. And for me, this is it right here. Like, only I understand what's really going on. That's like always, ever since I was like a teenager, I've had contact with these kind of people. And that's like always been the thing that's kind of like rubbed me the wrong way, that they have like the hidden knowledge. They're the only ones that really understand what's going on. There was this one person I watched for a while because he would like analyze the news and stuff. This was like back in like 2017. And like every single show or every single video that he put out, there's always like this big claim that there's going to be this immediate or imminent economic collapse. And here we are in 2025, and I still haven't seen the collapse, but that was always assured that there was an imminent collapse that was about to take place. So, continuing, is the perfect dopamine hit for a narcissist. It turns normal investing into a moral crusade where they are the enlightened prophet. Number two, zero-sum tribal signaling. These spaces reward extreme positions. Nuance gets you ratioed or called a shill. Fragile ego types thrive in environments where they can flex superiority by attacking others. You see the same NGMI, which is short for not going to make it, insults in crypto Twitter that you use to see with, well, and then there's another term for this other group. Number 3, get rich quick. We've talked about that before on the channel. And there's a part of my spreadsheet called quotes A through Z. Just scroll down to money, and I have all these different things that prophets and apostles and general authorities have said about money, and including things like schemes and stuff like that. So get rich quick with a persecution story. Narcissists love the fantasy of becoming fabulously wealthy while simultaneously being the victim, such as the banks are suppressing Bitcoin/gold prices to keep us down. It feeds both grandiosity and the martyr complex at the same time. Number 4, low empathy plus high risk tolerance equals perfect leverage degenerates. Psychopathic traits, impulsivity, lack of remorse, thrill seeking, map almost one-to-one onto people who 50 times leverage long altcoins or store their savings in a hardware wallet with a seed phrase tattooed on their arm. When it blows up, they just blame paper-handed weak hands or other things, never themselves. Number 5, decentralization as a narcissist dream ideology. No one can tell me what to do. I validate my own transactions. I am my own bank is catnip for people with authority issues and an inflated sense of their own competence. And that's interesting because it's like this same kind of mentality when it comes to living prophets. There's the famous phrase, I don't know if it was coined by President Kimball, but you have all these people that will garnish the sepulchres of dead prophets, but they mentally stone the living ones. And it's basically this: no one can tell me what to do. You know, if anyone's the prophet, I'm the prophet. I'm the one that has the inspiration. You're just a guy. You're nothing compared to whoever. And since whoever is now passed away, like Isaiah, I know what he was actually trying to say. Okay, number 6, cult leader economics. Both spaces are full of micro celebrity gurus who build parasocial follower armies. Narcissistic supply is basically infinite when you have 200,000 people calling you a genius for tweeting a chart with 2 trend lines. Okay. And then number 7, asymmetric validation. When they're right, Bitcoin hits 100,000 gold moons. They're profits. When they're wrong, 90% drawdowns, endless bear markets, it's just manipulation. Zoom out, bro. Heads they win, heads they win, tails, the system is rigged. Perfect setup for never having to confront ego threats. In short, these aren't, again, this applies to anything that's sensationalized, like these like really extreme, I don't know what to like call it, but scams or fringe type things. In short, these aren't investing subcultures so much as personality disorder amplifiers, dressed up as financial ideology. The core belief, I've figured out the one true form of money and everyone else is an idiot, is almost custom engineered to attract exactly the toxic / fragile ego cluster we've talked about before. Okay, so we're just gonna go ahead and end there. And then the last thing from the article was be wise in choosing your sort. No, wait, sorry. Number 3, do not overcomplicate the gospel. Sorry. I asked, can you provide me with, because I talked to Grok about this before, can you provide me with the same list of 20 things that toxic people typically believe about exaltation? And This is from conversations that Grok has had with individual users that have identified as members of the church, and looking at patterns, not going through a therapy session and determining who these people are psychologically, but just toxic patterns. That's who we're talking about. Okay. So it says, here's the parallel list I've seen from the more narcissistic / toxic fringe of the LDS adjacent users when the topic of exaltation comes up in private chats. These are the recurring beliefs that reliably signal someone has moved from sincere speculation into self-exalting delusion. Usually delivered with a tone of, I'm just saying what the brethren won't say openly. Oh my gosh, I've heard that so many times. It's that same mentality. I have the secret knowledge. I know what the big prophecy is that they're not talking about. Okay, number one. They personally held a they personally held a high premortal rank, archangel, mighty and strong one, candidate, etc. Number two, their calling and election was made sure in the pre-existence, not just in this life. Number three, they will rule over their own planet / creation, and current earthly family members will be their first spirit children. What? This is number three. That's not how it works. Your current earthly family members are spirit children of Heavenly Father. Your family members are your spirit brothers and sisters. They're not going to be your first spirit children. That makes no sense. Number four, they already possess the fullness and no longer need prophets or priesthood keys. Oh my gosh. Number five, the current church leadership is an apostasy for not recognizing their divine role. I have to wonder what kind of like letters and stuff get sent to the brethren. Letters, emails, messages. It's gotta be insane. Number six, they are one of the 144,000 high priests who will literally reign with Christ. Number seven, their patriarchal blessing contains secret clues that only they have decoded correctly. Number eight, they have already received the second comforter and now outrank most general authorities. Oh, this is not good. Number nine, temple ordinances were revealed specifically for them in this dispensation. Number 10, they'll be translated or taken up without tasting death because of their purity. Anyway, there's like other ones too. And then it says, when these themes cluster together in a single conversation, especially with demands that I acknowledge their special witness or anointing, quote unquote, that's the clearest red flag pattern I see. It's exaltation theology run through a profound narcissistic filter. Regular faithful members can speculate about exaltation without ever sounding like this. The difference is humility versus self-crowning. So that's an extreme example that I wanted to share when it comes to not overcomplicating the gospel, but I think there's a lot of lesser ways that you could still overcomplicate the gospel. And I don't know, maybe that's a topic for another video. But the theme of this video, we started talking about that large Second Coming painting, and I think that's really interesting. I think that could be a sign of where we're at right now in this Second Coming process, especially when you couple it with all these other things that we've heard said, like President Eyring this year saying that these are the final preparations for the Second Coming. So I guess it's not so surprising that we have all these bigger than life depictions of the Second Coming. But then just the responsibility we all have to educate ourselves. and educate ourselves with real knowledge, not sensationalism. Going to good sources, not these like mystical guru charlatan people. And there's a lot of them on YouTube and social media, but going to things that are actually validated, authoritative, actual science, not, you know, I don't know how to describe it. These magical thinkers, essentially, that it's almost like they're living more in like sci-fi and fantasy rather than real life. And if you're looking for a good example, look at people like President Nelson, look at people like President Oaks, look at the apostles. These are people that are not given over to speculation and these weird ideas that float around out there. And I'm hoping that over time, as we talk about this more and more, you can see the patterns. I feel like the people that usually go for the spectacular are the ones that want to self crown. They want to feel special. They want to feel like they have the secret knowledge that nobody else does. And it feels like they're very averse to what's normal or not spectacular, not flashy, not cinematic, because there's no glory in that. Right. That's what they're in it for. It's for glory. That's an oversimplification, but you get what I'm saying. Okay, well, I think that's going to be it for this one. I'll talk to you guys later.